Hello, good morning. My name is Ed Douglas. I am an educational consultant for Midwestern Intermediate Unit number 4 here in Western Pennsylvania. We service Lawrence, Mercer, and Butler counties. In my role, I'm charged with working in classrooms that some of the kids have some behavior problems and emotional disturbance diagnoses, along with students on the spectrum, the autistic spectrum. So that presents some challenges for classroom teachers in today's schools where the inclusion model is there's quite a few kids in the class that are diagnosed with special needs. Even the children that are undiagnosed have significant issues that affect their learning and the learning of their peers. So part of what I would like to do is create a video series that provides some tips, tricks, hacks for teachers and people that work in the school to deal with some of these challenging behaviors. My background is education, almost 30 years, primarily working with students on the spectrum and students with emotional disturbance diagnoses. Currently, I go into schools in these 3 counties and help coach and work with teachers in the areas of need that they have. Work with some phenomenal teachers, but many times teachers just aren't prepared to deal with the challenging behaviors that kids bring to them, whether it would be because of a diagnosis, trauma in their life. The reasons for student behavior it's endless. We could go on and talk about it for a long time, and perhaps in a later video we can look at some of those things. But to start this series, I would like to share with you the R's of classroom management from my perspective. These are some things that I've gleaned that over the years that really help, and just things for us to think about when we're working with all students and really all people for that matter, but primarily for the kids that are difficult to reach in our classrooms and in the school settings. I've come up with something I'm going to call it R's to the 10th power of classroom management. I'd like you to follow along with this series, and we'll grow and learn together because we're all in this together, and perhaps the children that we service in the classrooms that we work in will benefit because of it. So without further ado, let's get into the R's of education. The first R is rapport. How do we connect with young people? Are we standoffish to them? Are we afraid? Are we reluctant to participate in their day? I think we should be the giant chocolate chip cookie in the classroom that kids want to approach, and school should be a very good part of their lives. So rapport is my first R. How do we connect with the kids that walk through the door? Are we distant? Are we standoffish? Get up and greet the kids. Say good morning to them. Find out about what's going on in their lives. That will help us identify some of the triggers and maybe even signals that kids give us before they have a behavioral incident that can really provide challenges for the whole class. So greet the kids. Say hello to them. Be friendly. The expectation is not that you take them home and have dinner with them. The expectation is just show good human kindness to the kids that we work with. We want them to display appropriate behavior towards us. We need to do the same for them. So I think rapport is number 1, and we need to work towards establishing that with all the people that walk through our classroom doors. The second R is relationship. What is our role in that student's life? First and foremost, our role is teacher or educator, and along with that, we have to remember that the control we have over that student's life is the 7 hours that we work with them a day, or the 45 minutes we work with them during the day. So our relationship's really, really important. I know colleagues that go to sporting events and dinners and all kinds of activities with the kids that they work with, and that's wonderful. If you can do that, that's great. But I think first and foremost, we need to remember that our relationship to that child, that's the second R, is teacher. Not to get into power struggles with them because I'm the teacher, what I say goes, but we serve a powerful role in young people's lives. So our relationship with them, we should establish wonderful interactions so that we can model to the child what we expect from them. Please and thank you. Just good, again, back to that rapport piece. Each one of these is going to build, and then they are intertwined with each other. So our relationship as teacher, as role model, as counselor, as coach, maybe even mentor. What is our relationship with that child? I'll admit, I've tried taking kids home and sharing with them, my world. It didn't work well for me. I would avoid that. I would concentrate on the 7 hours that, or whatever our school day is, that we have control over. And with that control factor, ultimately the only thing that we have control over is our own behavior, our own attitudes. So keep that in mind, and we'll bring that out in another R a little bit later. Our third R is respect, and I've got them listed here. Rapport, relationship, respect. There's gender issues, race issues, religion issues, disability issues. We cannot control who comes through our door, but we need to be respectful to each one of those people that do come through our door, whether they're a kindergartner or a 12th grader. We need to be respectful of the person that they are. Some of the kids, they'll push your buttons, they'll find out what irritates you, and that's where they'll go. And oftentimes what we end up doing is focusing on that behavior and not on the person. So I think respect is another huge component of classroom management. Always respect the kid, the student, for who they are as a person, and then figure out how to support and manage the things that they bring into the classroom on a daily basis. So be respectful, use good manners, please, thank you. We want that same kind of thing from the students. So I guess the concept of the hidden curriculum, we can teach so many things through the hidden curriculum. It's social skills activities, respect. We all need it. Try it at a restaurant. Be a little bit more respectful to your wait staff and see what kind of response you get. I would encourage you to try it with your students too. Be respectful, say please and thank you. In a very short matter of time, you will find kids displaying that same behavior. The next R is response. So if a kid brings to you an issue that you may not be comfortable with, and you give this shock reaction, the kid learned one of your buttons. Be very careful how we respond to some of the things that kids bring out, some of the behaviors. I think with number 4, response, we need to have some empathy. I don't expect each one of us to walk in a child's shoes, but at the same time, trying to gain some understanding of where they're at and how we respond to the crisis or issue that they bring in. Or even a kid that brings a positive thing. How do you respond to that? Be pretty consistent with your responses. That neutral face. When a child, I think it's important to show emotion, but at the same time, when a kid does something to get a reaction out of you, make sure you have the same response. It goes back to the respect aspect. Respect the child. The behavior is what it is. We can work on that, but always respect the child. Okay? So response. How about repertoire of skills? That's really important. My skills as an educator definitely come to play into classroom management. Comes into play into the instruction of the academic material. If I'm not competent with algebra, I probably shouldn't be teaching algebra. But maybe I'm a great history teacher, so there you go. Know what our repertoire of skills are, and we're placed appropriately with those skill sets. But keep in mind, with a child, what repertoire of skills do they have? Where are they at developmentally in their life? They may be 10 years old, but if developmentally they're a 3-year-old, we can't have the same level of expectation. Now, with skills, Is there a skill deficit? Have they not learned the skill yet? Or are they resistant or reluctant to participate? Can the child or won't the child? Some of the ED kids that we work with, the oppositional defiant type students, they just won't do it. They may know how, but they won't do it. They're reluctant to engage in that behavior because of multiple reasons. So the question that I ask with repertoire of skills is it a skill set that the child knows? Have they learned that yet? Have they learned how to behave in class? Has a child learned how to say please and thank you? I would want to establish that before I require them to do it. And again, going back to the respect factor, how better to teach a skill than to model it. And we'll look at some teaching strategies, hopefully later in this series. So repertoire of skills, mine and theirs, it definitely comes into play. If I don't have the skill set as an educator, maybe I need to get some more training. Maybe there's someone that I work with that has a better skill set. Capitalize on people's strengths, and kids' strengths for that matter. If a kid's really good at one thing, use that as a motivator to build up something that they're weak in. Repertoire of skills. Routine is my next R. You can flip these around. They're interchangeable. I think that rapport, the number one, I think that's the most important, because if we've got the rapport with the kids, we can work through all of these. But routine is the next one. How constant are you? Are you? We could look at timelines. We could look at schedules. And that's something that I'd really like to do in another video is look at schedules in the classroom, whether they're written, picture schedules. Very, very important to stick to the routine. Kids that are on the spectrum, think about how behavior can change when the routine changes. It's so important to be consistent. We all have aspects of our life that we're very rule bound or routine in nature. Simple things of where's your toothbrush, how do you make your coffee, what way do you drive to work. Kids are the same way. They like things in certain order, and when you change that order, it can trigger some undesirable behaviors. So as the person in charge of the classroom, I want to make sure that the routine and structure is set up and very, very consistent. If there is a change in routine, I need to make transitional plans to warn kids that, hey, we have an assembly on Friday. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to have a good time. Let's walk up to the auditorium and see where this is going to be, and start that at the beginning of the week, rather than Friday 10 minutes before. Hey guys, we've got a schedule change here in a few minutes. It might cause some behavior problems and might create some difficulty in transitioning. And as a teacher, it might give you some stress, and then it just kind of spirals out. So transitional warnings way ahead of time, and that creates flexibility with kids. As adults, we need to be flexible too. So again, routine is very, very important. Are you that constant person? Are you always there? Or are you in the faculty room and show up late for class? That may not be a good way to manage your classroom. Be in the classroom, be at the door, greet the kids, be that constant. Again, it comes back to you as the educator, paraprofessional, whoever's providing services to that child, as you actually become a reinforcer. So we'll get to that. And that goes right into the next one, reinforcement. Why do you show up to work? Do you feel good about what you do? I do. I like my job. I'm very fortunate in that. I get paid too, benefits, good response from colleagues and people that I work with on a regular basis. That's quite reinforcing. Paycheck buys us things, provides for our needs. I'm talking about kids too. What are they getting out of the time they spend with you? Is it a good experience? If it's a good experience, they're more likely to come back and engage. It's reinforcing. And in a positive way. But if it's a negative reinforcement and they don't want to engage with you, you might want to change that. Let me share a thought with you. If it's about reinforcers, if it's not reinforcing to that student, it's not a reinforcer. Very rarely will kids work for things that aren't reinforcing to them. I had one young man some years ago that he understood the concept of exchange. In our paychecks, that's an exchange system for reinforcement. Skittles, edibles, great reinforcers. You give them, they're gone. You don't have to worry about it. This young man didn't like Skittles, but yet he understood that it was a reinforcer. So he would work for that. Along with that tangible item was praise. And perhaps we can, in the future, we can look at how do you effectively reinforce a child with praise. We can look at reinforcement schedules because those are very important. But kids will work for things if it's reinforcing to them. Let's face it, technology today is a huge reinforcer. So say we work for 15 minutes and get 5 minutes of the iPad. Sounds like a great idea to me, and most kids will work for that too. So reinforcers, very, very important. And what's reinforcing to you? Are you reinforced by your job? Are the kids that you work with reinforced by the time that they spend with you? I would hope so. Is there learning? Is there growth? Is it a good time? And education can be fun. I realize that we have core standards to meet and all kinds of expectations, but I think there should be some enjoyment for the students and for us in the time that we spend in the classroom. And I realize certain kids bring challenges with that, but we can help shape that behavior. So don't be that, again, that chocolate chip cookie. Resiliency. What is that? How do you bounce back from something? So you had a bad day yesterday. Are you going to come in and have a bad day today? Well, that's up to you. You make that choice. How about the kids that we work with? Some kids are so resilient. They live in situations that would challenge even the strongest adults. They're pretty resilient. The fact that kids show up to school every day to be there, they're resilient. Praise them for that. You know, if we have to look for things to reinforce a kid for, sometimes it's just, hey, you showed up to school today. I'm glad that you're here. That could be quite reinforcing to a child, knowing that an adult that they care about is glad that they're present, because it might be the only safe place that they get to experience in their daily routine. So we can capitalize on that, the resiliency of a child. And the resiliency of staff too. Really keep that in mind, because that comes into play. If a child presents an issue to you that hits close to your heart, be very careful in how you respond to that. And again, it comes back to the empathy piece. I have some colleagues that work around empathy, and maybe we'll spend some time and talk to them, kind of a video blog. Anyway, resiliency. Very important to be resilient. What's your well? That's my question for you. What is your well? What are you filling yourself up with so that you can go back to school tomorrow and do your job effectively? IEP season, it's pretty hard sometimes. We work a lot of hours, but are you doing something fun and healthy for yourself so that you can come back the next day and do your job effectively? And I think about a young man that I worked with who had I missed his signals and cues. He engaged in some meltdown behavior, not very dangerous behavior, but yet it was pretty intense. He followed through with his behavior. Behavior de-escalated, and I said, "Hey, tomorrow is a new day." And that's how we should address most of these behaviors. Tomorrow's a new day. Don't hold it against the child. Resiliency. The kid knew that my words were true, and I faced every day as a new day. The next day he got off the van and he said, "It's a new day." And he's right. It was a new day. So how do we make that happen for us? It's a new day. Be resilient. Have something else to fill yourself up with. Theology, family, sports, hobbies. Make sure it's healthy, of course, but have something else in your life that helps to complete who you are. It'll make your job a little bit easier. Could be a reinforcer for you. If I get through my work day, I can go do yoga. Not that I do yoga, but everybody's got their thing. So resiliency, quite important. Rigor, another R, but it's down at the bottom for me, because the rigor is the academics of what we teach, of what we do. Math, science, social studies, PE, chemistry, whatever the subject is. Until we have a kid ready to participate in whatever rigorous activity we're doing, it's not going to be successful. If a kid can't sit in his seat, it's really hard to do a math activity, to do a chemistry or a science activity if they can't focus on the task at hand. Rigor is important. That's why we do school. That's why we teach, so that kids can learn. But if their behavior interrupts that, it's really challenging. So the R's before help us get to rigor. It may be that the child can only sit for 10 minutes, but that's when we need to capitalize on the rigor component. That's when we need to maximize that kid's 10 minutes to get the academics across to them. And it may take an extended period of time, but nonetheless, if we've got the rapport, the relationship, the routine, and all those things in place, then we can do the rigor. And then you will see growth and progress. I remember working with a child who his behavior was pretty provocative. Come to find out, his academic skills were really lacking. We changed some things around, and the young man quickly learned that, hey, if I sit and attend a task, I get a break, I get a reinforcer, and pretty quickly he learned how to do some academics that were helpful to his adult life. Kid had a hard time even writing his name. Why is that? Because he couldn't sit still long enough to attend to that task. So we need to make sure that we've got behavioral things in control first, and then do the rigor. Because if not, you enter into power struggles, and no one wins when you have a power struggle. And we want to avoid that. Don't make the activity a power struggle. Create positive behavioral momentum to get the kid to participate in non-preferred tasks. Come up with creative ways to capitalize on that kid's interest, to get them ready to do the non-preferred tasks. That's the art of teaching. The last one that I'd like to share with you is reflection. 30 years. That's what I'm coming up on. 30 years in education. A lot of reflection. The question that I would ask you is, if you had today to do over again, what would you do different? That's the reflection piece. What worked and what didn't? Now, some of the challenging kids that we work with, it worked today, it may not work tomorrow. You need to have a great big box of tricks to help these kids, because tomorrow may not work. But if it works, keep doing it. All right? Celebrate that success. If it doesn't work, change. All right? Try something different. If you keep trying, sooner or later, you will come upon something that works for an individual kid. So those are my 10 R's for classroom management. And I would hope to, in the future, go deeper into each one of these. So R's to the 10th power: rapport, relationship, respect, response, repertoire, routine, reinforcement, resiliency, rigor, and reflection. My name's Ed Douglas. I work for Midwestern Intermediate Unit Number 4. Glad to be an employee there. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Think about subscribing and hit the bell for notifications. I want to bring some more videos to you in the future. So thank you for your time and have a great day.